Hi Libra, Rosemary from Rosemary Astrology, and welcome to your October 2024 astrology. There's a solar eclipse taking place in your sign on the 2nd at 2:45 p.m. Remember, I'm always in Eastern time. This is at 10 degrees of Libra, also called a new moon eclipse because the moon and the sun are together, and of course Mercury is along with both of them as well. So eclipses, something is happening in shadow, something is happening but in an unseen way. With a new moon eclipse, we often talk about a beginning. I find beginnings and endings are often two sides of the same coin. Something ends, something else begins, or if we want to begin something, we have to sometimes end something else. But not a good time to make a choice, make a decision to go ahead with something because, again, there's information missing. It's as if you're sort of wandering around in the dark when you're doing this. Mercury there is also going to make you particularly interested in examining things, maybe researching things, looking at a lot of different options. Mercury is very, very curious. The first house has everything to do with your physical appearance, your uniqueness, your vitality, your personality. So it's also our physical appearance. It could be how we show up online. It could be how we show up just in the eyes of others. A lot of desire to communicate perhaps with Mercury there. But again, just be careful about having too strong an opinion or making a choice or taking sides because there's something that you're not seeing. So you're putting something forward, but it is done so on partial information. And then obviously, like when that happens for all of us, sometimes we find ourselves having to backtrack. Again, try to give yourself easily a week on either side as well, because this is really intense energy when we talk about an eclipse. But do know something is changing, and maybe you're going to look at this, months from now. It can sometimes even be years, and say, wow, that's when all of that began, way back then. Sometimes we say to look back to last month's eclipse, that was on the 17th of September in Pisces, for clues, sometimes ahead to the full moon or the new moon, like give yourself exactly 1 month, so the start of November. Often, sometimes interesting to look at when another planet, usually one of the interpersonal planets or outer planets, hits the same degree of any sign. And Jupiter will do that in July of 2025 in Cancer. So I will check back and let you know what that is all about. I do have a whole video on this eclipse, interesting for you particularly because this eclipse for all of us is taking place. The eclipses follow the nodes of the moon, and I do have videos on the nodes of the moon, but the nodes of the moon are presently on the Aries Libra axis. So first house, seventh house, you're a reverse Libra. I always say that of the natural house chart. So it's going to be about relationships and self within relationships for all of us. And I'll link that below in the description. The moon, as if the moon hasn't been up to enough, moves very fast, spends about only 2 days, a little over 2 days in each sign. By the 17th is going to be full across from your sun, or from the sun in your 7th house. I'll come back to that in a second. Again, we will be talking about this relational axis. Mercury hangs around pretty close to the sun for the first week of October. So your focus remains here on self, on first house, on who you are and how others see you, then slowly begins to pull ahead, and by the 13th arrives in your 2nd house where Venus is already. Venus will be there until the 17th, the same day as the full moon. So your 2nd house, Libra, is your wealth, your income, money you make, money you save, property you own. Venus is your ruler and is related to money. So wonderful to have Venus there. With Mercury there too, maybe you're thinking a lot about how to save more money, how to invest your money. Sometimes on a more psychological level, what our wealth means to us, how materialistic we are. But Venus is also the lesser benefic in astrology, so can have you benefiting from opportunities, can have people wanting to help you as well. Venus is very, very much about relationships. And of course, as I said, with Mercury there, maybe you're just examining a lot of options, looking at a lot of different possibilities. Definitely, the time that these two are there, the focus is on your 2nd house. Venus can just bring you almost, lucky windfalls when she is transiting our 2nd house of money. Now, by the 17th, oh, just before I do, I keep forgetting to say this, but Venus is going to oppose Uranus sitting in Taurus, another money house, from the 12th to the 17th. Venus and Uranus opposition. Remember, Uranus is about breakdowns, breaking free, a lot about freedom, a lot of disruption with Uranus. I always say Uranus functions in fits and starts, but this is going to be a lot about freedom in relationships, freedom from constraints. So the eighth house is wealth you share with a partner, be it a life partner, a business partner, it's debt. It's all forms of financing. So a research grant, a mortgage, for example. It's also inheritances. These few days of opposition here can have you perhaps desiring to break free in terms of maybe you feel too much of your income is going to pay off debt, for example, or to pay off a loan. It's also another form of debt. But something sudden, you're going to have the feeling of, I really have to have more financial freedom from that, for example. Or maybe, it has to do with a partner, who's paying for what or who is putting how much into the joint account or, the shared money. So again, that idea of back and forth, it can be building a little bit before the 12th and dying down after the 17th. I always look at dates where they are very, very close in whatever aspect it is. By the 17th, then getting back to that, just as this ends, Venus moves into your third house. This is everything that is familiar to you, your siblings, your cousins, relatives, your short trips around town. We say weekend getaways, day trips as well. So just, your familiar region as far as you can get in a day in a car type of thing, as opposed to the ninth house that is long distance travel. So Venus is just, I say the warm fuzzies, but just maybe more warm, loving moments with your siblings, with your cousins, with other relatives, just getting together more. Venus will also sweeten all your communications. The third house is all your communications, written, spoken, online. It can be letter writing. It's also our communication style. So Venus, again, very charming and diplomatic. People will just be drawn to you. And there's that ability of Venus to take everybody into consideration and into account. So if there's something to be discussed, definitely with Venus in your third house, this is a good time to do that. The 17th is also the day of the full moon, sitting at 24 degrees of Aries. So there is a sun-moon opposition. Again, this idea of back and forth between self and committed partnerships, exes, rivals, and the competition as well. So there's those very close one-on-one relationships that have an impact or influence on us. And it's always a question of finding balance. The full moon is an energy that can bring something to a culmination. If something has been sort of, floating around and not been addressed, it can come to culmination on the full moon. There can be a conclusion of some sort. The full moon highlights something. The full moon, of course, has very bright light. So something can be really coming to your attention, really highlighted. And again, that idea of back and forth. So, something, I often say it has something to do with perhaps not being able to show up a certain way within a relationship anymore. So, us not wanting to get lost too much in a partnership. At the same time, we do want to contribute to the partnership, and we can't have the partnership just be running according to exactly who we are, right? So you get the idea of this balance back and forth. And if something does come up, it could also tie in with this eclipse in your sign, Libra. So it might be another indication or clue of what new beginning has been happening in the shadows. The other thing I wanted to mention with the full moon, of course, I always say give yourself 2 or 3 days on either side of the full moon because emotions are running high for everyone. So for yourself, and remember those around you are also going to be more emotional, including partners. But also Mars will be squaring this full moon. It is very brief. Again, as I said, the moon moves very, very fast. And Mars is at 22 degrees of Cancer when the moon is full at 24. So not exact, definitely not an exact T-square as well. But it's as if Mars is giving this extra little point of exacerbation. A square is a difficult aspect. Mars can be a difficult planet. Mars wants to take action. So it's as if Mars is just, emotions are high enough, but Mars is just sort of, niggling you with, hey, are you really going to take that? Are you really going to put up with that? Like, say something, speak out. Mars wants to do something, wants to take action. There's a feeling of a need to act. So not only can we be emotionally triggered, but there's that feeling of having to act or react. So again, do try to hold off. If it's still there, after the energy dies down, you'll be able to address it, but probably in a much calmer fashion. And speaking of Mars, Mars is sitting in your 10th house of success. Wherever, I always say, whatever wall you have leaned your ladder of success. So we can be talking about career. It can be another area where you're really striving to move up that next step, or get that recognition or that title or that achievement. Of course, the highest point in your chart, right? The midhaven, the cusp of the 10th house. Mars will be there for all of October, has been there since, I'll say, the last 2 weeks of September. It will be there into November. Seems like a long time. Mars spends 6 weeks in each sign, but it is longer than usual because Mars is entering pre-retrograde shadow on the 5th at 17 degrees of Cancer. Mars is going to station retrograde in Leo on the 6th of December, and I'm putting this on everybody's radar ahead of time because as we get closer and closer to that December 6th retrograde point, the energy of Mars is going to slow down more and more. Remember, this is also people in authority, bosses, supervisors, people who outrank us on this ladder of success that can sometimes be instrumental to our success. So if you are pushing ahead, if you have a lot of energy to tackle, where you want to advance, or maybe there's certain steps you have to take in order to ensure your success, it's still a relatively good time in October. But as we get closer and closer to the start of December, we're really going to be feeling that energy slowing down. And Mars likes to go forward fast, and likes to get things done. So there's going to be a feeling of frustration settling in, Libra. And I don't want any of us to be caught off guard with that. Probably do a video on that. Do a Mars retrograde first aid video type of thing. Mars only retrogrades about every 2 years, so thank goodness. And if we know what the energy is doing, then we're not caught off guard, we're not surprised, and we know how to deal with it a bit better. There is a way of putting Mars retrograde energy to good use, as much as he gets very, very annoyed and upset with all that. And finally, on the 22nd, the sun leaves your sign, the end of your birthday month, and moves into your second house of wealth and income, probably continuing what Venus started and what Mercury has been sorting through or had you thinking about, your yearly month-long check-in. So just like a big bright spotlight, bringing your focus to the second house and some sort of, I would say, yearly review or yearly analysis. And you might be thinking, okay, what am I going to go ahead with? What am I not going to do? As all my research or thinking with Mercury, have I come up with something useful that I can apply? Did Venus maybe bring in some opportunities that I want to explore, type of thing? So of course, this lasts for all month, or for 1 month. So the 22nd until about the 22nd of November, when the sun again will move off into your third house. So lovely, Libra. That is everything I wanted to tell you for October. Thank you so much for joining me. Drop me a comment. Let me know your thoughts on what's going to be going on in October. Have a wonderful month, and I'll see you in the next one.